Welcome tonight to our training for Spice of Life. Very excited about this blend. It was one of the very first blends that I created many years ago from doing research on the plague era. I was quite intrigued when it came to the people that had survived the plague. I'd heard many accounts that there were people that completely escaped the plague, and where there was a whole community that had been lost due to the plague. And so it really intrigued me. And while in France, seeing how they were using the essential oils so powerfully for all kinds of medical problems, it really became an intriguing thing for me. And so I spent a lot of months actually studying the thieves and the spice traders and how they all kind of work together to conquer the dreaded Black Death, the bubonic plague that killed over 30 million people in the 14th century. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into Spice of Life and start to understand some of the background behind it, how it came to be, and then look at the compounds within and how it's blended and what kind of power we have there to enjoy. But before we do that, you know, Thomas Edison, a very amazing man in our time. He talked about doctors of the futures will give no medicine, but will interest their patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and the cause and prevention of disease. Guys, I can honestly say that statement right there is absolutely, could slide right into Be Young without one little bit of problem, because that is what we're all about, is prevention. It is easier to prevent than it is to cure, because once something goes wrong, many systems fall apart. Now we have to try to bring those systems back up to balance so that we can have that homeostasis instead of something out of whack. So very important, and that's what we're looking at with Spice for Life. We're not going to say it cures this and cures that and cures everything. It is a absolute amazing prevention for a lot of things we're going to discuss tonight. Now, the use of aromatic oils have been around for a long time and has history that is unbelievable. Dates clear back into the early periods. The earliest distillation happened in the 16th century. It was absolutely amazing as I started looking at writings in Egypt and in Turkey and Greece. Absolutely amazing how it really has a long history and a long traditional use. And the thing that's amazing is spice oils and spices literally go back and predate the use of herbs. And that's kind of amazing. Even in the writings, it talks about scented barks and resins and spices and aromatic vinegars and wines and beers that were used in rituals and temples and embalming and also in medicine. We find these writings, and every time we find spices connected. And so that's what got me so intrigued as I sat there one day in a pharmacy and watched a pharmacist blend a group of oils to give to a person that had a prescription. And there were many spice oils I recognized as I stood there and watched him blend this together. And it really got my mind going when I could smell the aromas of spice oils, blending it together, thinking of the plague years. All of a sudden, it just kind of came together in my mind, and it launched me into a huge study. So let's look at the plague years and try to understand why they used these aromatic essence to protect themselves. You know, during the 14th century, basically all medicines, essential oils, and everything were under the control of the Catholic Church. It was not easily accessible to the common people. They had the formulas, and they had the herbs, and they had the essential oils. They kind of held that close to themselves, and the common people were just kind of left out there, kind of hanging by themselves. Well, during this here period of time, the essential oils were heavily used in the perfume industry and also in the leather good industry. And so they were being used to make hats and gloves for women, and they would scent them with essential oils. And so there's quite a bit of use in the common world with essential oils that were not controlled by the Catholic Church. And it wasn't just in one area, it was around the world. For example, you take a look at the word aroma. It's an ancient Greek word for spice. The Greeks really discovered a fondness for the perfumes during their invasion and conquering of Egypt in 48 BC. They used the herbs and the aromas long before Cleopatra met Mark Antony. And it's kind of amazing. Even Hippocrates, he studied more than 200 herbs and documented their use throughout his lifetime. And many of those herbs that he documented were aromatic herbs, which really gives us a sound understanding that these predate a lot of the herbal work that we find. He was an amazing man, the father of medicine today, and it requires a great quantity of spice and herbs, as witnessed in his writings, that he literally used spice oils and fumigated the city of Athens to stop a cholera outbreak. That's pretty powerful when you stop and realize that these spice oils are really, really there and have been used for millennia. Now, during the Middle Ages, a pound of ginger was worth the price of a sheep. That's pretty impressive. A pound of mace, you could buy 3 sheep and a half of a cow. Clove cost the equivalent of 20 pounds. That's kind of amazing. A pound of pepper, always the greatest prize of all the spices, they were counted out by the peppercorns themselves. During the Queen Elizabeth time, they literally had sew the workers' pockets closed. They couldn't steal a peppercorn. A man's life was worth the sack of peppercorn. Absolutely amazing. Taxes were assessed and paid with spices. That's how valuable. Next to gold and silver and salt, the spices were the next powerful exchange on the marketplace. And during this period of time, spice traders kind of emerged. They found that going to the Spice Islands and other places in the New World and bringing back spices was absolutely a very lucrative business. But there was a challenge with this, because before the spices kind of started becoming the main cargo of these ships, there were a lot of deaths at sea, and it literally followed family lines. And so there was this belief process that if you went to sea, you would find the same death that your father or grandfather or great-grandfather found. You would die at sea because it's in your blood, it's in your family line. And that wasn't the case. It was just kind of one of those, again, coincidences that kind of lined up that way. But there was poor water, poor food, bad weather, long hours, and stress. All this worked to break down the body, and then disease would start happening. And of course, they would have no way of handling that, and they would pass away, die at sea, and then there started the whole tradition that it was within the family line. But what kind of turned things around is when Captain Cook sailed into Botany Bay with a ship clear full of sick people. And when he landed there, they were so sick, a third of the crew had died, and the rest were sick and dying. And the native Aboriginal people of Australia there on the Gold Coast took them from the ship and took them to what Captain Cook describes in his journal as the magical lagoons. Because when you look across the water, it would just kind of glisten in the sun. And they bathed them in the waters, and then they went around and picked a little scrubby tree, the leaves thereof, and steeped it and made a tea, and they drank that. And that is the person who actually named the Melaleuca tea tree, because they pulled the leaves and made the tea from that tree, and that's where we get that name. Absolutely turned things around. The crew became well. They collected all kinds of spices and tea tree and eucalyptus, loaded the ships, and headed back to England. This began a very powerful, powerful trade and commerce. At this point, spice, cumin, cinnamon, ginger, all these spices that they were trading with, pepper, became such a commodity that literally there were battles fought over this. And what happened is these spice traders, they were also part of the apothecary of the Catholic Church, and they understood more about how to use these. And they would go out and get the spices and bring them back and do their tinctures and do their blends and do their combinations, and that's what they'd use to help heal the people. And they became very, very sought after, and that was also in a family line. And so as this plague broke out, these spice traders, they kind of got themselves crossways with the political arena, because they would bring all these spices back to the king, show the bounty that they had, and the king would say, wow, how do you know this is going to help you? Well, these native people gave it to us. We were sick. We got better. These things work. Well, do they believe in God? No. Heathens, this is black magic. This is of the devil. You can't use it. Don't use it at all. But when the plague broke out, the king decommissioned all the spice traders. He said, this was your fault. You've been cavorting with these heathens. And so now God's punishing all of us because of you. So the king decommissioned all of the spice traders. Their income went from here to here, and they were struggling. And so the spice traders literally turned thieves, because at that point, there was so much death going on because of the plague. In fact, as you look into the 14th century, you can find that the dance of death eventually became the little nursery thing that we did as children, Ring Around the Rosie. And if you take and examine that nursery rhyme, it really helps you to really come to understand it's describing the events that happened with the plague. Ring around the rosy. Well, what is that? When the bubonic plague would come into the body, it would go into a white blood cell. And then the white blood cell would be, stimulated to say, uh-oh, incoming invasion. And it'd start running around your body, multiple of them, running around the body trying to find the invader. The whole time carrying the invader inside of the white blood cell. Eventually that white blood cell would become exhausted, and it would arrive in a lymph node somewhere. And in the lymph node is where all white blood cells are recycled. Well, at that point, this bubonic plague virus, so smart because this is what viruses do, literally took on attributes of that white blood cell. So when it got to the white blood, got to the lymph node, and the white blood cell now is going to be recycled and removed from the body, that bubonic plague virus would pop out of the white blood cell. The lymph node would now look at the plague as part of your body, because it had taken on some attributes of the DNA of the white blood cell. So the immune system would look at it and say, I'm not supposed to go after this guy, that's part of me. And thus you would have the big rings around the lymph nodes, thus ring around the rosies. They believed that it was evil spirits, and so they would put posies in their pockets to ward off the evil spirits. Pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That's how they got rid of the bodies. They burned the bodies. Well, the American version is different than the British version. The British version is a tissue, because pneumonia followed the plague. And that was kind of a really quite an interesting discovery. I had no clue as I went through school, this is where that was all about. And then I started studying the plague years after school and find this information. Now, it's just kind of amazing how this whole thing kind of inspired the spice traders to turn thieves. Knowing what they knew from being on the ships and being part of the Catholic apothecary, it literally, they would use the spice oils to protect themselves. And not until 1413 were these spice traders actually rounded up in the town of Marseilles, France. They would go in and rob the bodies, the dead bodies, and that's pretty scary because the plague could get from a dead body to you, and your death sentence is signed. So they would actually go in there and rob the dead and dying and the homes. They actually became the first Ponzi's, or pawn shops, because they'd take the silver goblets and the good things out of the homes. They would sell them. And so that's how they were making their living to keep things up. Well, they were rounded up and charged for robbing the dead and dying, and they were going to be put to death. And the king was so adamant about finding out what they were doing, because they had done this for a lot of years, made a great living, and not one of them contracted the plague. And he wanted to know what they were doing so that he could use it for himself and his family to protect them from the plague. They were tortured, and they were told if they would tell their secrets that they would be put to death without being tortured. Well, they gave up some of the information, and then they were put to death. And basically, this recipe is still found in the English Royal Archives today. It's literally the formula of what they call the 4 thieves of vinegar. There was lavender, rosemary, clove, nutmeg, sage, cinnamon, and it was also in a suspension of vinegar and garlic. Absolutely a pretty powerful recipe. Now, history also teaches us that there were several cities, actually 5 that is known. Bucklersbury is one of the 5, where the residents completely escaped the plague because they were using lavender to scent their perfumes and the leather goods that they were making. Now, research and scientific evidence shows us that lavender literally boosts the immune system and has antimicrobial properties that rival and surpass modern antiseptic and chemicals and antibiotics today. That's pretty powerful. And so we understand that. So we see these entire communities within a 30-mile radius around those communities actually escaping the plague completely. That is absolutely amazing. Well, this is something that is new to some of you. This is an actual rendition of what the doctors would wear during the plague season. This is amazing. This is actually a leather plague doctor's face mask with this beak on there. Can you imagine how horrifying that'd be to see this person walk in to your bedside? Now, why the beak? The beak was to stuff the aromatic plants into that big long beak, then put the hood on, and that's what protected the doctors from the plague. Is that absolutely amazing when you see the power of just breathing in the aromatic essence as it is literally flashing from the raw plant itself? Very, very powerful. This was a treasure when I found this actual rendition of the actual doctor's mask during the 14th century. Now, Dr. Valnet, in his book, he's still alive. He is the only living protege of Dr. Gafassi. He's 99 years of age now. But Dr. Valnet, he's really ingrained in the pure use of essential oils. And he's saying now doctors and the public have recently discovered essential oils, and they're starting to return to them. The knowledge comes from antiquity, from the Romans, from the Egyptians, from the Greeks. And now we're starting to see more people embrace the power of aromatherapy and essential oils. So let's, now that we kind of understand the history behind this and what took me on quite a long journey to find all of the different parts and pieces that kind of comes together to make Spice for Life, let's look at the essential oils that are within that blend. And you'll find that they are really quite simple, but yet quite powerful. Cinnamon bark. Now, a lot of people, cinnamon is cinnamon. It's not. Most of the formulas that you'll find out there is cassia, which is a cousin to cinnamon, but it does not have the strong antiviral properties that I wanted to have within this blend. And cassia is super hot and tastes horrible. When you taste cassia versus cinnamon, totally not nice. The next oil, and of course we have a list here, and the list you'll see by percentages. I have to list them that way, but that's not how I put them together, because if you change the combination that you see in front of you right now, and you do cinnamon and Ravensara and lime and oregano and clove, you change the order, you change everything. The blend will not work the same way. So there's a very specific order in which I put it together to synergistically enhance this blend's ability to target what we're after. And you'll have an opportunity to kind of see what I mean in just a little bit here. But Clove Bud, out of all the oils you see up there, Clove Bud is the most powerful antibacterial oil of any single out there, even more powerful than oregano. Lemon and Mandarin Orange and lime, your citruses, your antioxidant power, plus a whole bunch more you're going to see in just a little bit. Your black cumin, absolutely amazing. Of course, your eucalyptus polybractis, mucus to get the mucus up and out of there, Ravensara, thyme, and oregano. So let's just kind of take a look here at cinnamon bark and kind of see some of the amazing properties that it has so that you can really drill in and understand the power there. Now, cinnamon has been used traditionally for your stomach and your gastrointestinal area to take care of all kinds of problems. In fact, one of the things I love Spice for Life for is if you have food poisoning, make yourself just a little tea with that, drink it, it's over. I've done that so many times with my family, I can't even count. It is absolutely excellent for your stomach. It also is strong anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antifungal, and it has an antioxidant property that is fairly high. It's absolutely amazing. And because of some of the constituents that you find within cinnamon bark, it also helps with blood sugar issues. And so many other effects that cinnamon has. One of the amazing effects, it was working with severe viral infections and cancers. Okay, so if we take a look here, what I did is I built for you a graph. And you can see here we've listed the antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, the carminative effect for the stomach, anti-inflammatory. Everything just kind of comes right across like this. And this is our starting point. This is just cinnamon bark alone. And you can see on the graph how much power each one of those areas has just with cinnamon bark alone. But when you're building a blend, you want to create it in such a way that it will synergistically enhance the target that you're after. And so when you get done, you have something greater than the sum of the individual parts. And so watch this graph as we move through this. So we're going to move to Clove Bud. Now, the German E-Commission has approved clove as oil for a topical anesthetic, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. It's amazing. Super high anti-inflammatory. It kills insects really well. But guys, I'll tell you what, it's excellent for the buccal cavity, the oral teeth, mouth, bad breath, numbing. They use it in the dentistry practice all the time because of a compound called eugenol. So if we add this now to cinnamon bark, look at what starts to happen. The blue is just cinnamon bark alone. The yellow is cinnamon bark and clove together. And now that's a very powerful, powerful situation as you look at that. Look at how the antiviral jumped up. Look at how the antibacterial jumped up. Look at how the antifungal jumped up. Everything has elevated significantly by synergistically adding these oils together. Now let's just go over and see what happens when we add lemon in there. Once again, lemon comes from the rind of the lemon through pressing it. A lot of therapeutic properties traditionally, and as well as what you can find in research. It includes the liver protection properties. Thus, you'll find it in one of our signature products, the Defend Pack. In addition to a tonic to the body to protect the liver, there's a lot of research that has been conducted that shows that it helps with obesity, super good antioxidant, antibacterial, and a moderate antifungal properties. Kind of amazing. So now, if we look at the graph, look at how we start to see things really start to change. Again, the blue is cinnamon bark only, and the orange in the back is going to be your cinnamon and clove and lemon added together. Absolutely starting to really see some things stand out. If we move over to Mandarin, it's orange essential oil, absolutely amazing. Apart from its flavoring agent and stuff like that, an amazing antiseptic for wound healing, and an antispasmodic specifically for the respiratory system. It is amazing what it can do for stopping the spasms of the lungs, as well as pulled muscles and other painful situations. Circulatory, oh my word, it's amazing for the circulatory. Improves circulation, the blood and the lymph. And when you have a challenge going on with a sore throat or something, what's happening with the lymph system? You've got big old swollen lymph glands. Things are challenged. So you can see why I would want this oil within the Spice for Life blend. Absolutely amazing. It helps to purify the blood and remove toxins and unwanted substances. So when you have all those lymph nodes working and killing all the bacteria stuff, it's going to help move it through the lymph system and get it out of there. Excellent for the digestive system. Great to stimulate the discharge of digestive juices and bile into the stomach so you can break down your food. That's why it so well soothes the stomach, especially when you have a food poisoning situation going on. Look at what it does for the liver. It literally helps the liver discharge bile to protect from infections, and also the immune system, to discharge the immune system, to optimize its function. Nervous relaxant for the brain and the mind, and to help with epilepsy and hysteria. Amazing, amazing, amazing aspect. Tonic for the entire body, a little bit sedative. One word of caution though, guys, is that it is photosensitive, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. But look what we have now. Look at the blue being cinnamon bark alone, and look what we have now by adding clove, lemon, and orange, Mandarin orange. Look at the distance, look at the change, look at how much more powerful already this synergy has become. Now we have something that is really going to get out there and do an amazing work. When we start looking at lime oil, it is full of antioxidant and other nutritional benefits. It increases your hunger and your appetite. It prevents aging within all of the systems. It reduces pain and muscle in the muscle and joints. It prevents and fights against viral infections. Pretty powerful. Stops bleeding and promotes blood coagulation, so it works with the platelets. Useful for food poisoning and typhoid. Guys, you see why using Spice for Life is so powerful when it comes to food poisoning? Because of the combination of oils there. Very antibacterial, a disinfectant, and it will help lower a fever. Now take a look. Look at the power here. Look at how everything is growing on the orange side. Of course, the blue stays the same, but look at how much we have increased the overall power of that essential oil blend. Let's take a look at black cumin. I love black cumin. Anytime you go to an Indian restaurant, they're going to have black cumin and fennel and aniseeds and salt in a little bowl that you can eat the seeds. It's been used, the history of black cumin goes back for so long. And it's literally, they use the black cumin seeds to make curry and soups, and they fry the seeds. But look at the digestion. When you have a real bad congestion coming up in your lungs, usually comes from the stomach. It improves your immunities, treats piles, insomnia, respiratory disorders, bronchitis, common cold, anemia, boils, cancer. Those are just some of the common things that you can find anywhere, traditionally as well as research on black cumin. Look at the power. Look at how high now the antiviral property is of Spice for Life, and we haven't even got all the way through. It is doubled over cinnamon alone, completely doubled. Now, Eucalyptus polybractis, that is the chemotype, Eucalyptus chemotype polybractis. We have the Eucalyptus radiata as the single oil, and it's actually referred to, there's 700 different species in Australia and New Zealand, and it's kind of amazing. We use 4 different kinds of eucalyptus here at Be Young. And Eucalyptus polybractis is one of the ones. There's another name, they call it Eucalyptus blue sometimes. It's very, very powerful in pulling mucus out of the body. Look at the health benefits that are attributed to polybractis, anti-inflammatory, anti-mucolyptic, antiviral, antispasmodic, decongestant, deodorant, antiseptic, antibacterial, natural pesticide. Use it to keep bugs off from your foods. It also will take out intestinal parasites, reduces fever, and is stimulating to all of the organs in the body. Wow, it is loaded clear full of benefits. Look at the power. Look at how everything is changing so quick on this graph. This is so, if you'd actually sit down someone and show them this graph, it would blow their mind because there's so much power there. Ravensara. It is a big tree in the rainforest of Madagascar. Its botanical name is Ravensara aromatica. And in Madagascar, they literally praise this oil, and you'll find this in all their literature. It is the oil that cures all. They prize Ravensara over anything you can imagine. I had to have it in Spice of Life. I just had to, because of this one thing only. And look at the health benefits, guys. It is amazing. The list actually could go on further, but I stopped here. Look at the anti-allergenic, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antidepressant. So it helps with depression. Antifungal, antiseptic, antispasmodic, antiviral. Absolutely amazing. Disinfectant, great for the stomach, and diuretic to keep the fluids moving. Expectorant, get the mucus up and out of there, relax you, and tones the entire body. Again, looking at the graph, the distance. I mean, look at your antioxidant properties and your antiseptic properties. Look at how high they have jumped up. It's just amazing. Now, thyme. Thyme oil is one of the oils that, guys, you should have it as a single. Bottom line. One of the research is done by Kurt Schnabelt, that actually Kurt Schnabelt reported on this research, is done by Dr. Valnet. He gained permission to do research with thyme oil and anthrax and showed that thyme oil completely stops anthrax. That's pretty impressive. Now, the most common thyme that you find out there is Thymus vulgaris. Look at this: antifungal, antiviral, antioxidant, circulation, heart health. Literally helps to clean the arteries and stabilize heart. Vision booster, immune system booster, stress reducer, respiratory relief. Absolutely amazing. And part of that is because of a compound called thymol within thyme oil. And wow, look at now, we've got something that is 10 times greater than where we started with just a single oil of cinnamon bark. Yes, cinnamon bark looked great way back in the day, but now as we continue to add more to it, we have created something synergistically that is greater than the individual oils themselves. Our final oil within Spice for Life is oregano. Very popular herb. A lot of people use oregano. There's a book out there called Cure in the Cupboard, and it's all about oregano. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that really, really get very connected to oregano. Turkey is probably the country that does the most export of oregano. The Schillings Company literally has a plant right in Izmir, Turkey, where they actually raise the oregano, dry it, and do all the packaging for the Schilling Spice Company. Absolutely kind of amazing. But it has such a power to the body. It literally, for immune health, has two important components in there that literally boost the immune system, helps with digestion, heart health, detoxifies the body, super strong antiviral, super strong antifungal. In fact, on Candida, you can dilute pure oregano 1 to 50,000 and still kill Candida, according to research. That's pretty powerful. So now when you look at the power of the antiviral properties, we went from a 3.5 to right at 12. So almost 4 times more powerful than cinnamon bark alone by itself. This is why we create a synergy, is so that we can literally drill in specifically, bam, on that issue and enhance it to such a phenomenal degree. So now that we understand this, let's look at the synergistic effect. Here's where we start with cinnamon bark. 3.5 with the antiviral properties, all the way down to some of those were, 0.5. But look at the amazing effect. Absolutely, synergistically have created a blend that is well beyond the individual parts that you find within this blend. Spice of Life is one of my absolute favorite oils.